just the way it is.
All right.
So there it is.
That's
All right.
okay.
Well, we're going to kick this off and we'll pretend like we're starting right now. Let's see who out there is listening to us. So let's start off by introducing ourselves, Sam. And why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I'm a bookkeeping professional for the skilled trades. I call myself a bookkeeping professional because everything I do is about creating value for my clients. When people typically hear the term bookkeeper, they think of a simple data entry type job that just needs to get done. But I have a background as a financial advisor and I have some tax experience, so I have more financial working knowledge than some of my peers. As I like to say, I provide actionable advice to help my clients propel their business forward. What about you, Michael? What's your background and what interests you about doing business with those in the skilled trades?
Well, my background's in higher education. I helped college students become better leaders for years. I did a lot of outside the classroom programs and activities. But I've also worked with business owners who are frustrated with today's generation of employees. They felt like these young employees lack work ethic and commitment to do their work. But truthfully, what I found is that improving the business owner's leadership skills dramatically improved the productivity and effectiveness of their employees. And so I've come to really enjoy helping business owners in the skilled trades learn how to grow their business, accelerate their profits, and learn what they don't know but need to know.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I've come to see that too. We don't know what we don't know. And we all know how to brush our teeth, but we still go to the dentist. Why? Just to make sure everything's okay. Same could be said for bookkeeping. It's not hard to do, but when it's done well, it gives business owners a clear understanding of how their business is doing. And without expertise in bookkeeping, they won't have the knowledge to interpret their financial reports or use that information to use to improve their business operations.
Of course, that makes a lot of sense. There may be some folks listening to this who are like me and always just thought that bookkeepers do the books, but never really understood what that means. What does it mean to do the books or to be a bookkeeper for a business?
So typically monthly bookkeeping involves recording transactions, making sure expenses are categorized correctly, reconciling bank and credit card accounts with the accounting software, and producing financial reports. The reports I produce are the balance sheet, the income statement, and the statement of cash flow. The balance sheet tells you what you have and what you owe. The income statement tells you what you made and what you spent, and the statement of cash flow tells you where your money went. If your bank account went up by 15,000 last month, or I'm sorry, if you made 15,000 last month, but your bank account only went up by 3,000, then your statement of cash flow should tell you what happened to the rest of it.
Do you provide other bookkeeping services?
So some bookkeepers might provide accounts payable or accounts receivable services, but I don't move money. It's best practice to have a separation of duties in terms of who sets up the payment versus who actually handles the movement of money. It's the responsibility of my clients to collect payment for their work and to pay for any expenses they have. I will, however, record invoices, send payment reminders for outstanding invoices, and work with my clients to make sure they have enough cash on hand to pay any upcoming bills. I'll also let them know of any uncollected revenue from the past 90 days. Also, while I don't take on an official CFO role, I do review financial reports with my clients and provide light advisory services to help them manage their cash flow and monitor their profitability.
That brings to my mind the idea of profit acceleration.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's really all about the power of compounding. If I offered you $1 million right now, or one penny that would double every day for 30 days, which would you take?
Given my financial advisor background, I would say that the 30-day option would probably be more beneficial.
You're exactly right. If it might seem really slow at first, it takes 28 days just to get over $1 million by doubling it every day. But by the time you get to day 30, you've got over $5 million.
That's the power of compounding right there. What does that have to do with profit acceleration?
Well, the concept of compounding can apply to the generation of profits in a business. When you apply the right business strategies in the right order at the right time, you can literally compound your profits, causing them to accelerate.
That makes sense. How would that work for a business in real life?
Well, let's say Gracie's plumbing business is currently generating $1 million in revenue. In our little example here with Gracie's Plumbing, their gross profit margin is, let's say, $500,000, and they've got a 10% net profit margin. Now, the business owner, being really savvy, understands the impact of applying the right strategies in the right order at the right time. So, by working with the coach, let's just say that she implements 10 new strategies for increasing profits. And each of those strategies has a 10% impact on profit. With $500,000 in gross profit, a 10% impact on net profit would, of course, be $50,000. So we would expect that after implementing 10 new strategies, she would see an additional $500,000 in profits. But that's not what happens. After implementing the first strategy and generating the additional $50,000, the second strategy will be working on the new profit amount of $550,000. So 10% of that is 55,000. And this continues for each additional strategy. So that at the end of it all, the new additional profit is actually $796,871. And that's all because of the power of compounding. Gracie's plumbing business profits have accelerated, not just grown in a straight line.
That makes sense. There are probably a lot of business owners in the skilled trades who would like to know specific strategies. Do you have any?
I do, and I'm always happy to have a no-cost conversation with any business owner who wants to know more. I can offer one easy go-to strategy right now that sounds obvious once I say it, and that's to always be analyzing your costs and looking for ways to cut back. Every dollar a business owner can cut in costs will have a direct positive impact on their net profits. Reducing overhead is a powerful profit accelerating strategy.
Yeah, I also look at ways that business owners can cut costs. One way is by outsourcing their bookkeeping versus hiring someone in-house.
Tell me more about that.
Hiring an employee is expensive. Starting salary for a full-time bookkeeper is 45 to $50,000 a year, and that doesn't even include the cost of any employee benefits like 401k, PTO, health insurance, or any other type of insurance. Not only that, it takes time to find the right person, and then it takes even more time to get them up to speed on your processes. I'm an independent contractor, so I already have my own processes in place. So after my onboarding process and a few months to become familiar with your books, my services become routine. For most businesses, it only makes sense to hire an in-house employee to do their books when it takes more than 30 hours a week to do their books. It's not really possible to put a revenue amount on it because every business is different and it varies by industry.
That's the kind of advice business owners need to hear. It's like one of the most impactful cost cutting strategies my clients love. And that's auditing your current suppliers and vendors for the products and services that you purchase daily, weekly, monthly, or annually.
Do you have an example of how a skilled trades business owner would do that?
Well, let's say there's a roofer out there listening to this. He's been working with one shingle supplier for many years, and they work well together. It's a good, positive business relationship. Now, he's currently spending, let's say, about $10,000 a month for shingles that he's getting from his supplier, Certainteed. Now, of course, we know they're a major supplier of premium quality shingles with extensive warranties, and that's why he's working with them. Of course, he could be buying shingles from somebody else like Owens Corning or GAF Materials. So here's the strategy. Would either of these two other suppliers be willing to give him a 10 to 20% discount just to get his $120,000 per year business?
Yeah, they would naturally provide him a lower price to try to get his business. They might lose a little revenue up front with the discount, but the point of the discount would be to entice the roofer to switch over.
Right. Our roofer could very likely get a better price with another supplier, thus lowering his costs and increasing his profits.
But it's not always about the price. Sometimes contractors have a good relationship with their current supplier. So does he have to base his decision solely on price?
No, not at all. And as I mentioned in this example, I suggested he does have a good working relationship with Certainty. So he can talk with his Certainty rep and use the leverage of better pricing from the competitor to negotiate a better price and keep his current supplier, still lowering his costs.
And for every dollar that he lowers his costs by, he directly impacts his bottom line profits.
Exactly. Regularly auditing your current vendors and suppliers and consistently checking on costs is one of the most powerful strategies to implement right away, whether that be to catch errors, find unexpected price increases, or other problems. All things an excellent bookkeeper, such as yourself, could do to help a business owner implement this strategy.
Yeah, that fits well into what I do. I help monitor expenses and help them see where their money is spent. In fact, one of the first things I do while onboarding a new client is ask for their most recently filed tax return. This will allow me to see which expenses they deduct, and I'll make sure that those expenses are listed out directly on their income statement. So organizing expenses is one of the first things I do.
And what else can business owners expect when they first sign up to work with you?
When my clients first sign up with me, there'll be some back and forth as I get all the info I need and get up to speed on their books. But as I become more familiar, there should be a transition from my clients spend hours a month on their books to they have a system in place for sending me the info I need on a regular basis, and then I take care of the rest. It's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. Like starting a new workout routine. At first, you're really sore and won't see the results immediately, but with enough time and consistency, you'll start to see results. You'll start to look good. And when you look good, you feel good.
That's a great analogy. Getting good results almost always means you have to put in the work consistently and over time. And you have to have the right mindset. What mindset should a business owner have when they set out to work with you?
They need to consider what it's really costing them to not outsource. I bet there are business owners out there who think it's cheaper to just have their wife or someone from their back office do their books. It's not. How much do you pay them in wages? How much do you pay for their insurance or 401k or PTO benefits? All those costs add up in a year, and if you add up all those costs that you do pay and then divide the number of hours they spend on your books in a year, that's how much you're paying them to do your books. Well, they're probably making mistakes because they don't even know the difference between a liability and an expense. Or you can spend that same amount of money on someone who knows what they're doing and can even provide advice on how to manage your cash flow.
That's an interesting shift in perspective. How do you get past the notion that bookkeeping is not that hard and it's something anybody can do?
Would you hand your wife a paint roller and a bucket of paint and ask her to paint your house? No. You want someone with a steady hand who isn't going to leave a mess and knows how to coat it just right for a neat finish with no streaks and straight, clean edges. Painting is a rather straightforward task, but you can tell when it's not a quality job. Same could be said for bookkeeping. On a basic level, it is just data entry, but there is a right way to do it with a sense of quality. And if you have a bookkeeper like myself who's keen on providing you with value, I'll take it a step further. I'll become your trusted advisor, someone who provides advice and lets you know how your business is doing, as well as someone who connects you with other people I know when you're looking to solve non-bookkeeping problems.
I couldn't agree with you more. Business owners in the skilled trades are particularly positioned to benefit the most by surrounding themselves with people who become trusted advisors, as well as provide excellent administrative and support services. Serving as a trusted advisor is exactly how I work to position myself to help business owners. I know there are more than 40 different strategies that can accelerate profits. Unfortunately, a lot of business owners don't even know about them. Or maybe they know about them, but don't know how to implement them in the right order or at the right time. My goal is to work directly with the business owner to recommend the right ones.
Wow, I didn't know if there were more than 40 strategies. You've mentioned a couple already, but can you name a few more?
Sure. The one that comes up with the vast majority of clients I work with are what I call the Jumpstart 12. These are 12 specific strategies out of those 40 plus that almost always yield the best results in the shortest amount of time. Now, some of those are creating and fully using a market dominating position, having a compelling offer, increasing prices using the right strategy, and let's say alliances and joint ventures is another good one.
So how do you choose which strategies to implement first?
Well, I start by talking with the business owner about their biggest challenges and problems, then completing an assessment focusing on the strategies that are most applicable to their current concerns. Based on the results of the assessment, we then discuss the sequencing and the timing to implement the right strategy specifically for them.
I imagine that's a conversation where the business owner should take a lot of notes.
Yeah, most of them do take a lot of notes, and they should. but I also provide a complete report of everything we talked about. That includes all of the strategies, the implementation steps, the sequence, and the timing.
Sounds pretty valuable. How much does the business owner have to pay for that session, the assessment, and the report?
Actually, they don't pay anything. When I do one of these assessments, I guarantee that I will not sell anything, and I require the business owner to promise to not buy anything. To do the assessment right, it's important that there's no hesitation, no withholding, and only honesty and candor. And that can really be hard to do if there's any anxiety or fear of there being a sneaky sales pitch coming. So, no selling, no buying. Just an assessment that produces a complete report for the business owner.
I like that. No selling, no buying. I work with the same mindset. I offer two free consultations, each being 30 minutes to an hour. The first one serves as an opportunity for the business owner and I to get to know each other, and then if it makes sense for us to move forward, the second consultation would be used to discuss the details of the services I would provide and how much it would be. I guess technically there could be buying and selling at the end of the second consultation, but I never use any high pressure sales tactics.
I think that's a great way to do business. Well, before we wrap this up, Sam, I'd like to know, what do you think is the biggest or most direct benefit of outsourced bookkeeping for someone in the skilled trades?
The additional potential revenue. People in the skilled trades typically charge a base hourly rate for labor, and then they charge for the cost of materials on top of that. If we take a look at just the labor and we take a plumber, for example, if he charges 200 an hour for labor and spends 10 hours a month on his books, then he could earn an additional 2,000 a month in revenue just by outsourcing and hiring a bookkeeper and using that time instead to complete more jobs. If he charges a higher rate for more complex jobs or spends 15 or 20 hours or more every month on his books, then that would just mean even more in additional potential revenue just by outsourcing.
Wow, an extra $2,000 a month sounds like a lot more than they would even pay to hire a bookkeeper. It's like your fee would pay for itself.
Yeah, for smaller business owners who only need 5 to 7 hours a month of bookkeeping, my fees would only be a few hundred a month versus the thousands of dollars more in potential revenue they could be making each month. I charge my fees hourly and on retainer.
I'm all about helping business owners increase revenue and profits. I suppose there are other more tangible benefits to outsourced bookkeeping too.
Yes, there are. I'll also make sure year-end reporting is as simple as possible. I pull expense totals for the year right from their income statement and send it to their accountant. No more taking time out of their busy day to gather all the receipts and give it to their accountant. Nowadays, business owners can have receipts in multiple locations, both digitally and physically. And while it's up to my clients to make sure that I have all of their receipts, I can consolidate them all to be within their accounting file. My goal when I work with clients is to provide them with as much value as I can. One of the ways I do that is by saving them time and essentially taking over their accounting file.
Speaking of accounting, I've often heard that tax preparation and payroll services can be additional services that some bookkeepers offer. Tell me how those two services fit into what you do.
So I don't do taxes or payroll. I have a tax background and I prepared tax returns for 2 seasons during college. So I have more knowledge about taxes than other bookkeepers, but I don't prepare tax returns. I do, however, coordinate with my client's accountant at the end of the year and act as a liaison between my clients and their accountant. As far as payroll goes, I don't run payroll or ensure compliance with all the payroll tax laws. That's beyond my expertise. But I do record the payroll transactions in the books, and I make sure that all the payroll taxes are broken out between the different entities and separated by employee. I also take on a liaison role between my clients and their payroll providers.
I really like how you made some very intentional choices to precisely define your expertise in business services. Too often, I see business owners doing things that are outside of their experience, usually because it's something that has to be done if the business is going to survive, but they really are outside of their wheelhouse. For instance, I see a lot of business owners set their prices just based on their gut feeling, when there really is a right way to do it effectively to maximize profits. Pricing is another one of those 40 plus strategies I can help with. What kind of mistakes do you see business owners make?
Sometimes people in the skilled trades have their wives or their kids or an office administrator do their books. And while they can probably get away with that at first, Those people typically aren't familiar with bookkeeping and may be inaccurate. Not to mention, because it's not what those people typically do, it would take them longer to do it than it would for a bookkeeper to do it. And in the time that it takes them to do the books, those people instead could be contributing in other ways. For example, handling customer relations, helping to secure more jobs, or focusing on social media marketing or any other marketing.
Anything else?
One of the most common mistakes I see business owners make is commingling funds. That's when they mix business funds and personal funds. These should always be separate. Have separate credit cards and bank accounts. If you already have personal expenses in your business books, create an equity account called due to, due from, and put all your personal stuff in that account. This essentially makes all business expenses paid with personal money a contribution to the business. It also makes any income that was made from the business that was put directly into a personal checking account a withdrawal from the business. As I start to work with a new client, this is one of the first things I'll review and help them with.
I really like that you mentioned that. I've seen a lot of business owners who are guilty of commingling funds. So after you make sure personal and business expenses are separate, what's a typical next step that you take?
So after I help them separate personal and business transactions, the next thing I prioritize for my clients is establishing good budgeting practices. Business owners should put aside 10% of their gross income into a retirement account and set aside 20% of their gross income for tax payments. They can just leave the tax reserve in their business checking account until they need to make the payment. Then they should look to build an 18-month emergency cash reserve. Take a look at your expenses from the prior year, multiply total expenses by 1.5, and that's your 18-month runway. This will allow you some breathing room if your business is interrupted for any unforeseen circumstance like a health issue or rebuilding after a natural disaster. All of this is easier to do with the help of a highly skilled bookkeeper, and I'll help business owners set up a budget and build up their cash reserves just like I described.
Whew, you're really offering a lot of incredibly valuable service through your bookkeeping services. And I'm able to help business owners identify and implement the right strategies to increase, no, let me say, accelerate their profit. You've got 2 free consultations, and I have my profit discovery assessment. So let's do this. Let's offer anybody listening to this conversation so they can go to bit.ly slash, well, hang on a second. Let me do this. Let me just put it up on the screen. That's going to make it a whole lot easier. So they can just go to this URL, bit.ly slash offers PB, or they can, of course, use the QR code there. We promise that there's going to be no selling and no buying, just an honest conversation. And if that conversation proves useful and they want to meet again, well, then we're going to be happy to have a second discussion. Sam, I think that about wraps it up for us today. Any last words to share?
Yeah, just a couple of things before we go. First, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, Michael. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I really appreciate your time and the time it took to help put this all together. Second, I want to let business owners out there know that they don't have to be frustrated, stressed, and overwhelmed with their books. I'm here to help, and I'd love to have a conversation with them to see how I can help.
Wow, thanks a lot, Sam. I really appreciate that. I look forward to speaking with any business owners out there as well. Thanks for spending time with me in this conversation. And to anybody that's listening,